Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining me today. So I know a lot of you have joined my channel because of the emulation projects and stuff that we have looked at over the past year and a half or so. The channel really started with, RetroPie, emulation, Raspberry Pi projects, and it's expanded beyond all that. But today, I wanted to kind of touch on what I'm doing and what I love about RetroPie. So yes, this video is titled something along the lines of $35 arcade machine. And that's really where we're at right now. Looking at this little custom theme that was done by Dwayne Hurst for me for a special Neo Geo build that I find really awesome, but I've expanded it beyond Neo Geo. I really love emulation, but if you've been following the channel for a while, you've had discussions with me, whatever the case may be, you probably know I don't really emulate console games too much. It's not that I'm against it, it's just I have most of the consoles and the games that I'd want to play anyway. I still, on occasion, will jump onto, emulating something just to check it out. But most of the time with the flash cards, the EverDrives, SDS, SD2, SNES, all that stuff I got, I'm playing on some kind of hardware. But emulation, I think, is really awesome, especially for arcade games. You're seeing a lot of these arcade games that I'm showcasing that I have on this arcade-only image that I've been working on. And to me, it's awesome to be able to play these games this way, because to have the authentic, real thing is just so damn expensive. I can't afford to have arcade machines. There's a lot of cool little things coming out, the arcade 1-up, whatever they're called. Those 4-foot arcade machines look pretty cool, but they're still, $300. With this, with RetroPie, using a Raspberry Pi 3 or B+, you're sitting at 35 bucks. This image here that we're looking at, with these games, with these awesome looking bezels and just great selection of classics, I paid $35 for the system. I'm only using a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. And, 32 gigabyte cards, what, 10, 15 bucks nowadays? They're really not that expensive. Yeah, so $35, of course, you got a few other things you need, but a lot of times, people will have, micro SD cards lying around that they've, used before, maybe not using anymore. Maybe they went to a bigger one for a cell phone or something like that, or tablet. May have some older ones sitting around, and that's perfect for something like this. 32 gigabytes, you could fit a lot of arcade games on a build. This right here, I've got like over 2,000 games. That might not seem like a lot to some, but to me, having a focused list of arcade games that I want to play, and they play well, I think is definitely awesome. Back in the day, I grew up with the Atari 2600, the NES, and that was definitely awesome. And, I stayed home playing those systems quite a bit, and there was tons of arcade ports that came out for those systems, including moving on up to, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, and, the PlayStation, stuff like that. There was always arcade ports that were sweet to have at home, but when arcades were still relevant and people were going to them, I loved going to the arcade. The best way I could put it is, you knew a movie was coming out, like back in the 90s. A movie's coming out in the movie theater. There's no other way you could watch it back then. You couldn't stream it, you couldn't, download it. You were going to the movie theater to watch it. Because the release on, VHS and later on DVD, typically those releases, they were pretty far off once the movie came out in theaters. Nowadays, it doesn't seem like we wait very long for movies to become available to either download, stream, or buy the disc for. And to me, it was like there was a lot of arcade games you knew were going to come to consoles, but you still went to the arcade and played them, because it was going to be quite a while before they were actually ported to, your home system that you had. Killer Instinct was one of them that I remember just playing the crap out of. Everybody was hovering around that machine. It was a beautiful time. I just have so many fond memories of going to the arcade, playing Galaga, Pac-Man, playing some of these Daphne games, Dragon's Lair 2, Space Ace. Very awesome things, and these games are, you know, it's capable to be played on a $35 single board computer. Maybe not Killer Instinct, and you know, a lot of other games, newer games anyway, but the Raspberry Pi, you could play pretty much everything from the 80s, 90s, some stuff up to, you know, the early 2000s. Street Fighter, you could play up the Street Fighter Third Strike, and that's good enough for me. You know, playing Marvel vs. Capcom, things like that. Definitely sweet games. Street Fighter vs. X-Men, all those games, very awesome. Playing all these Neo Geo games, you know, the Neo Geo Classic Mini, whatever you want to call it, Neo Geo Mini, just previously released in Japan. And, you know, I'm having some kind of, you know, weird thoughts with it. I did do my video review discussing it, some of the things I disliked, and, you know, it kind of, I didn't really see the value in buying that system. But the more I've been messing with it, the more I can appreciate it and like it. But I still have issue and concern. You know, there's a lot of access to play these games. Neo Geo games, for example, you could download them on the Switch. You could play them on Raspberry Pi with no issue, virtually no issue that I can see. You know, you might have a little bit of input lag, stuff like that. But playing on modern TVs, it's kind of a thing you have to deal with anyway. But really, for me, most of the time, I'm not that snobbish about it. And with fighting games and certain other games, I don't really notice that kind of stuff. You know, once you go from playing, just an example, a console game, Super Mario World or Super Mario Brothers 1 on NES. If I'm emulating that game and then I play it on original hardware, my timing is off. You know, if I'm stuck on playing it on original hardware and then I jump to emulation, I can't play. It just, you know, those time jumps and just the flow of me being so familiar with those games will be off. But arcade games, I can't really complain because the access that we have is all emulated anyway. You're not getting cartridges, you know, with the original games and hardware. You know, we're emulating any of these classic systems that come out. They're emulating the Super Nintendo Classic, NES Classic, the future Sega Genesis Classic Edition, whatever that is, and coming out, who knows. They're all emulation based, and it's kind of a thing, you know, that you just have to deal with. And for me, if it's a game, it's a system that I don't have access to, arcade stuff as an example, any of those cons with emulation don't really, you know, hold any bearing on me. I could play the games just fine. Neo Geo might be a little different because I do have a Neo Geo, but playing some of these games, not King of Fighters anyway, I'm not good at King of Fighters, never been into the game too much, but any of the other games I can perform and play just as well and have no issue or concern with that. So I think emulation is a great thing to preserve history and to keep access to these games out there. Tons of these arcade games we're not given access to. Or if we are given access, such as the Neo Geo Mini, there's, you know, or even the Neo Geo X Gold when that came out. I bought 3 of those dang things over the years, and all I ever had was problems with them, even though I really was hoping that that system would be great. And if it would have just performed the way it did, and I didn't have issues where, you know, the handheld blew up on me once, and another time the handheld just stopped working. Stupid little things. I could have been satisfied with what I had. You know, a lot of people complained about the system and issues that it had, but for me, hey, not having access to that stuff's kind of cool when you are given access. But now, you know, Neo Geo Mini, with the way it displays on TV, the limited access to controllers, there's no plug-and-play controllers that you could just use, apparently. You know, we'll do some tests on that, but I'm having a hard time being able to use the device without controllers, so I can appreciate it, but then at the same time, the execution is not there for me. So I'm a big proponent of emulating arcade stuff. If you guys want to see some, you know, more in-depth tutorials, putting together an arcade build, drop a comment down below. We'll do some crazy stuff with that. You know, this channel was built on emulation, RetroPie, Raspberry Pi projects, And I'm not abandoning that, I've just been expanding upon that. So the content as far as emulation is always going to be here, but hey, I want your guys' input on certain things. My passion is with arcade games when it comes to emulation. And if you guys want to see, you know, the nitty-gritty, putting this together for yourselves, how easy it is, let me know. So appreciate you guys stopping and smash that like button, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. And with that said, guys, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out. Bye-bye, and boom!